WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's made there in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Cotonou. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko launches Senegal's 2050 Transformative Development Agenda.
Il s'est transformé ensuite en un projet politique solide,
that is based on the principle of good governance and justice and arbitrariness within the administration.
Burkina Faso captures Adaman Umaru, a leader of the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara.
We are not changing because we stand on the principle of Jesus.
Mass protests in Liberia disrupt United Methodist Church services over same-sex marriage.
We are not changing because we stand on the principle of Jesus Christ. We stand by the Bible and the truth, and our pastor will not be removed.
And teachers' unions in Cote d'Ivoire threaten 3 days nationwide strike for salary increment and other benefits. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. This edition begins right here in Senegal as President Diomaye Faye's government has officially launched Senegal 2050 National Agenda for Transformative Development. The agenda aims to promote national sovereignty, justice, and prosperity across all aspects of the country. Speaking at the event today, Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko said the policy document will serve as a blueprint for the social, political, and economic development of the nation, focusing on deepening Pan-Africanism, enhancing economic competitiveness, creating jobs, improving human capital development, and social justice, as well as leveraging the country's diverse culture for inclusive financial and economic growth while reducing poverty. At the event in Jamiajo, there are several attendees, including President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, state officials, including youth groups and civil society organizations. Here is the Prime Minister's speech.
Malgouvernance, de l'injustice et de l'arbitraire au sein de l'administration. Il s'est transformé ensuite en un projet politique solide,
that is based on the principle of good governance and justice and arbitrariness within the administration. It was then transformed into a solid, ambitious, and progressively hopeful political project. On the 24th of March 2024, the Senegalese no longer visit the country as they made a clear choice to elect President Bassirou Diomaye Faye to the Supreme Magistracy. If we have resisted with resilience for so many years, it is because as convinced patriots, we were aware and worried about the ravages, the bad choices, the bad practices of our governing elites since independence of the country. When the time came to take stock, we found an economy marked by decades of dependence and poor governance, where opportunities for young people, women, and local businesses were often sacrificed for personal gain. Your Excellencies, Mr. President of the Republic, you materialize your commitment to transparent and virtuous governance of public affairs as soon as you took office by conducting audits, including the audits of public finances. In the conclusions we presented a few days ago, revealing the seriousness of the outgoing regime's gross negligence, the structural weaknesses of the Senegalese economy, its dependence on external resources and raw materials, its limited private sector, and its often inefficient administrative governance plagued by corruption. After this courageous exercise in drawing up a benchmark and telling the truth to the Senegalese people and our partners, we are back before you to present the new benchmark for our public and social policies.
Nous revoilà devant vous pour présenter le nouveau référentiel de nos politiques publiques et sociales.
Senegal's Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko speaking at the official launch of the nation's 2050 National Agenda for Transformative Development in Jamiajo. Let's now move into the Sahel region for some major developments, particularly in Burkina Faso, where authorities have announced the capture of a leader of the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara. Adaman Umaru, who planned several terrorist attacks, mainly in the Sahel region, was captured on October 10, dealing a significant blow to this armed group operating in that part of the country. Nader Titi has the details in this report.
Adama Umaru is known for his role as a fighter and a bomb maker within the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, originally from Makoy. He has been involved in deadly attacks, cattle thefts, and the installation of improvised explosive devices, EIDs, in the provinces of Seno, Udalan, and Yaga, all located in the Sahel region. He organized and participated in a February 20, 2023 attacks on the population and military detachment in Tin Akof, as well as a deadly ambush on a military patrol in Makoy in January 2022 and the interception of trucks on the Makoy to Kabangu route, which left 9 dead, among other terrorist attacks. This senior ICGS figure joined terrorism in 2019. According to the Burkinabe army, he was captured on October 10 in the Makoy area during an operation that neutralized around 20 terrorists and recovered logistical equipment. Security experts describe his capture as a major setback for the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara. It is also a significant relief for the local population who have been under terrorist threat for several years. In a related development, it has also been reported that 2 lawyers were kidnapped and killed on the Dedugu Bobo Dioulasso Road. The lifeless bodies of the 2 men who were traveling to Bobo Dioulasso were found last Saturday after several days of searching. This is the first time that members of the judicial community have been targeted by terrorist groups.
Nader with that report. Similarly, in Mali, the army says it has neutralized several terrorists, including one of the most wanted leaders in the northern town of Ber. The individual in question is Al-Izal ul-Yahia, also known as Julaibib al-Ansari. He is believed to be responsible for numerous atrocities against local populations, including targeted assassinations and attacks on the Malian armed forces. Christopher Aticho reports.
In a statement issued this weekend, the Directorate of Information and Public Relations of the Armed Forces confirmed the elimination of Al-Izad al-Diahia, alias Jolabid al-Ansari. The key terrorist leader has been actively persuaded by the Malian forces in the Bay area, located in the Timbuktu region. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces, Jolabid al-Ansari is held accountable for several terrorist acts, including targeted killings of civilians and improvised explosive device (IED) ambushes on military forces. The neutralization took place last week as armed groups were preparing an ambush against the commander of Sector 3 of Operation Maliko, who was returning from bail. The ambush was successfully foiled by the military armed forces, former 17 kilometers east of Timbuktu. During the firefight, the Malian military confirmed the neutralization of several other terrorists and the recovery of significant military equipment. The army reported a few minor injuries among its personnel. As a reminder, last April, the Malian military also neutralized Abu Huzaifa, known as Hego, the leader of the Islamic State in the Sahel.
Christopher, a teacher reporting there. In Niger, mixed reactions are trailing the government's decision to revoke the citizenship of some individuals suspected of terrorist activities. Recall last week, 9 associates of ousted President Mohamed Bazoum temporarily lost their Nigerian nationality for alleged crimes, including conspiracy against the state. This decision was made without prior judicial conviction, sparking varied reactions among the population. Abdullahi Hassan has the details.
Within the Nigerian civil society, the decision made by General Abdurrahman Chani has been well received. This is particularly the case for the Patriotic Front for Sovereignty, which supports the temporary revocation of citizenship for the 9 individuals accused of conspiring against the state. Bana Ibrahim, the organization's communications officer, shared his thoughts.
It is a salutary decision that responds to the new threat facing Niger. You know that in addition to fighting against terrorism, we have been imposed a second war, which is against the neo-colonial powers that we have expelled from our country. Today, these powers are colluding with terrorist groups and also with some Nigerians who live abroad and even within our borders to undermine the efforts of the National Council for the Salvation of the Homeland in terms of security, governance, and the development of our country.
While the civil society organization backs the military leader's decision, this is not the case everywhere. On the streets of Niamey, some of the people we spoke to rejected the measure.
The fact of withdrawing nationality from a citizen, I think, does not deserve to be done. No one is above the law. If there are issues, we can call the person and address them. Otherwise, what is the importance of justice? What is perhaps even the importance of imprisonment?
When we say that nationality is for some, we are participating in this. So what will be the finality of such a decision? And where does this certification lead? These are questions for which we expect answers.
As a reminder, this decision to revoke the nationality of Mohamed Bazoum's associates suspected of terrorist acts is only provisional. It will become permanent if the individuals are sentenced to 5 years or more in prison.
Abdullahi Hassan with the details of Niamey correspondent Mutala Zubeiru's report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Away from the Sahel, the Network for African National Human Rights Institutions has called for the prevention of torture and protection of vulnerable groups, including the LGBTQ+ community. The call was made in Banjul, the Gambia, at a 4-day forum to advocate for enhanced human rights protections across the continent. As the 81st Ordinary Section of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights approaches, participants at the forum emphasized the urgent need for stronger legislative frameworks and effective enforcement mechanisms to combat torture, protect the vulnerable groups, among others. Our Banjul correspondent Sankula Janko has more in this report.
The Network for African National Human Rights Institutions Forum, which began on Sunday, 13 October, is expected to last until Wednesday, 16, 2024 in Banjul, the Gambia. During this forum, advocates raised urgent calls for prevention of torture and the protection of vulnerable and minority groups, including LGBT+ individuals. Dr. Joseph Vital is the chairperson of Network for African National Human Rights Institutions.
We will be discussing in depth Africa's position in terms of the prevention of torture along the lines of the Kiev-Copenhagen Declaration, which adopted the declaration, to see to what extent we can play a meaningful role in the prevention of torture in Africa.
Dr. Vital also highlighted the need to protect the vulnerable groups, including LGBT individuals, a topic that continues to be a burning topic in the continent.
We are commissioned, human rights commissions throughout Africa, to protect the rights of all persons. We have a duty to protect the rights of everyone, including even those who we term as being sexually different from us.
With funding from the European Union, the EU ambassadors designate to the Gambia, Immaculado Roca-I Cortez, reiterated the bloc's support to the promotion of human rights in Africa.
Reinforcing the capacities of each of the members of the network, in accordance, of course, with the Paris principles, is an arduous task, and the European Union is very happy to be here to support.
Discussions are expected to abreast the participants with trends in human rights violations, particularly affecting marginalized populations, including women, children, and the LGBTQ+. Key among the objectives is to enhance the role of African national human rights institutions in promoting and protecting human rights in the continent. For Newslink and West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankula Janko reporting from Banjul.
Well, in Liberia, mass protests disrupted some United Methodist Church worship services over same-sex marriage. The protests broke out at two of the United Methodist churches in Liberia over the issue of leadership, church regionalization, and same-sex marriage. As it stands, Section 14.79 of Liberia's Penal Code defines consensual same-sex activity as voluntary sodomy or first-degree crime that is punishable by up to 1 year in prison. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Grace Joshua reports.
In an interview with some members of the church, they expressed sadness over the church's involvement, what they describe as shameful acts that are condemned by the Holy Bible, stating they are unwilling to accept such practice. Speaking at the New Georgia United Methodist Church, rumbling discontent boy due to Bishop Samuel Quay alleged suspension of Reverend Leo T. Milson. Reverend Milson, known for his outspoken views against homosexuality and the church's ongoing regionalization strategy, reportedly faced suspension, which his congregation is passionately opposing.
We want to send a target to the bishop. So it will be one of those that will commit the issue about jail last day. Judge General, this attack will be our country, and means that will be doing wrong to the society.
We are not changing because we stand on the principle of Jesus Christ. We stand by the Bible and the truth, and our pastor will not be removed.
Bishop Samuel Quay has called on members across the country to embrace and welcome people of the LGBTQ community into the United Methodist Church, a move that has sparked division among church members.
There are people who, some of them men marry men, woman marry woman. Some of them, they change the gender. They say, oh, I'm not a man, I'm a woman in a man's body. So all of these people there, they are in the church. They are in the church. And for the past 2 years, they have been fighting for the church to recognize them.
During the service, protesters vocally demanded Bishop Quay removal, adding that they would not bow to regionalization or homosexuality in their churches. However, it was gathered from the scene that the assembly was in fact a demonstration against Bishop Quay's decision to appoint a new pastor over the congregation objection. For West Africa Democracy Radio, Grace Joshua in Monrovia.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of the top stories. Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko launches Senegal's 2050 Transformative Development Agenda. Burkina Faso captures Adaman Umaru, a leader of the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara. Mass protests in Liberia disrupt United Methodist Church services over same-sex marriage. Still ahead, teachers' unions in Côte d'Ivoire threaten 3 days nationwide strike for salary increment and other benefits. We also have the press review, guest interview, and the sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thanks for being with us. As a reminder, we're streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. We cross over to Côte d'Ivoire, where the teachers' unions for preschool, elementary, middle, and secondary education threatened a 3-day strike starting Tuesday, October 15, 2024. Meeting under the ISMINA, the inter-union of the Ministry of National Education and Literacy, these educational stakeholders are demanding salary increment, particularly quarterly bonuses. Echiatisu has more in the following report.
This is a slogan chosen by the Teachers Union to make their voices heard. These actors in education and training in Côte d'Ivoire want better conditions of service and improved salaries. Despite meetings with the Ivorian Ministry of Education, they are maintaining their stance to strike. Blade David is the spokesperson for ISMENA, the inter-union of the Ministry of National Education and Literacy.
Teachers in Côte d'Ivoire, the inter-union of the Ministry of National Education and Literacy, ISMENA, has just held an important meeting following all the discussions we had with the authorities. It therefore emerges from our exchanges that the strike order remains in place for the 15th, 16th and 17th of October. We must carry out this strike across the entire national territory.
Moreover, the inter-union denounces what it describes as intimidation from the supervising ministry.
Comrades, let us stand up to all forms of intimidation, no matter where they come from. For the fight for freedom, the fight to win our rights, comes at a cost. Let us stay mobilized. One life counts and leads to victory.
Thus, ISMENA is calling on its members to mobilize for a 3-day strike starting Tuesday. The teachers are seeking a constructive framework for discussion to address their grievances.
Eche Atisu with the details of Abidjan correspondent Albin Ade's report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's now cross over to Abuja and join Usma Umara for the press review.
We begin the day with Nigerian News Direct, which is leading with this story. Reverse petrol price hike pending court verdict. Socio-economic rights and accountability project set up, tells President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It, with riders, warns of constitutional crisis, judicial interference. And the last rider says petrol price increase will hurt vulnerable Nigerians. Set up, as you already know, is a pressure group that has been in the forefront of calling for accountability and good governance in Nigeria. There are a couple of other stories. Igboho seeks UK Prime Minister support for Yoruba nation agitation. If you remember, Sunday Igboho is an agitator for an independent country for the Yorubas, which is from the southwestern Nigeria. And then he is now writing to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for support for Yoruba nation. Another story, Nigeria Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, seizes 22.7 billion naira worth of opioids. Arrest Thailand returnee with 3.1 billion naira heroin in Lagos. At the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos on Saturday, a returnee from Thailand was arrested, and after such, drugs, that is opioids, worth about 22.7 billion naira were seized, and heroin worth 3.1 billion naira were all seized from the returnee, and he has been in custody awaiting prosecution. Of course, there are a couple of other stories here saying Lokbobri, that is Minister of Petroleum, Minister of State for Petroleum, and Festus Keyamo, that is Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, to commission Nigeria's largest jet fuel depot. And the final story will be taken from Nigerian News Direct, says Century FPSO to boost Nigeria's oil production by 40,000 barrels per day. And this is the much we have for you on the press review segment today as I return to the studio.
Thank you, Usma Umar, for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The guest segment this afternoon takes us to Burkina Faso, where the authorities have announced the capture of a leader of the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, Adaman Umaru, who planned several attacks, mainly in the Sahel region, was captured on October 10, dealing a significant blow to this armed group operating in that part of the country. Our guest is Gashamaki Peters, a regional security expert. He speaks about this latest arrest and what it means for the fight against terrorism in the Sahel region.
I commend the government of Burkina Faso and their allies for their ability to have ensured the successful elimination of the Islamic State leader around the region. And to say that it's a step in the right direction, we hope that the government will be able to sustain such an effort so that they can bring about stability in the country and by extension in the region. If that happens, it's better for all of us as citizens of the nation of the world. But if there's a succession plan and the next in line is more brutal than the current leader that was eliminated or arrested, then we need to brace up for further war and better response to the activities.
What does this latest arrest mean for the fight against terrorism, mainly in the Sahel region?
It's a step in the right direction because it means that the government is responding appropriately. It means that the government is gradually winning the war. So it's a positive step, such as an arrest. I hope that the Burkina Faso government will increase their surveillance, will increase their intelligence, gathering and enhance security around here to ensure that no one succeeds tomorrow, to ensure that they destroy the cell in totality, that they don't have the ability to recruit again. So the effort must be sustained. The effort must be ongoing. There's no room for lapses or to go to sleep. So the government must be on its toe and they must work with neighboring governments in Mali and other states to ensure that they are achieving this singular aim of ensuring that no one is able to fill the vacant space the arrested leader, and we don't have them coming back to the group again.
However, others could say that this arrest is just a save of the name, because there are various terrorist groups in the region which could continue in other Sahelian states like Niger and Mali. What do you also say about that?
When you take up a leader of a particular association, a group, a terrorist group or a political party or any other place, a head of the family, it always has effects on the well-being of that association or family. So I think it's a gain, it's not a loss. Just to encourage the government of Niger, the government of Mali, every neighboring country around here to sustain this effort and to support other legitimate government to fight any legitimately association or group like the Islamic State in the Sahel region and any other part of Africa.
Gashamaki Peters is a regional security expert. And here is Sankle Janko with sports.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Burkina Faso secured a 2-0 victory over Burundi in their CAF Africa Cup of Nations AFCON qualifier at Felix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium on Sunday. The win consolidates the Stallions' position at the top of Group L with 10 points from 4 matches as they edge closer to qualification for the competition to be held in Morocco. With this win, Burkina Faso leads Group L with 10 points, 3 points ahead of Senegal, who will face Malawi in the other group fixture on Tuesday. Elsewhere, several countries will be seeking to secure their place at the CAF Africa Cup of Nations as match day 4 of qualifiers continue from Monday. Algeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Egypt, DR Congo and Angola are among the countries with perfect records in their qualifiers, and victories could all but confirm their places at the competition to be held in Morocco. Nigeria sits at the top of Group D with 7 points and faces bottom-placed Libya, who have only 1 point. A win for the Super Eagles would see them strengthen their lead and edge closer to qualification. Benin meets Rwanda, hoping to build on their 3-0 victory and solidify their second place standing. Angola leads Group F with 9 points and will take on Nigeria, who sit at the bottom with 1 point. Ghana, currently third with 2 points, faces a must-win game against Sudan. A win for Angola would likely secure their qualification, while Ghana risk falling further behind if they don't pick up a victory. Meanwhile, reigning champions Cote d'Ivoire will seek to maintain their perfect record when they face Sierra Leone. With 9 points from 3 games, the Elephants are on the course to qualify early. Zambia takes on Chad, who are still searching for their first win. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and to Maodo Diouf for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also